The night she said it, her words didn't just land. They struck like a hammer against the fragile glass of my trust, shattering illusions I didn't even know I was holding. I need to find out if big size really matters. You'll never know. Don't worry, she said, tossing the challenge into the air like a gauntlet. I had spent 7 years building a world around us, a universe where loyalty wasn't an option but a language we both spoke fluently. A silent covenant reinforced by shared history, laughter, and quiet nights spent in the small intimacies that only married life can offer. Yet in that single phrase, all of it twisted into something alien, a subtle yet unmistakable declaration that what I had built, what I had nurtured, what I had invested myself into with every ounce of love was no longer sufficient. And I, who had always been steady, unwavering, allowed myself to respond simply, calmly, with one word. Okay? No anger, no hesitation, no imploding confrontation, just a single word that became a quiet, tremulous marker of the war that had quietly begun between us. I watched her leave that night, her back straight, her steps full of confidence, heels tapping a rhythm of defiance, the echo of her presence lingering in the hallway like the first smoke of a fire that no one sees until the flames are already consuming everything. The house felt empty, yet charged, as though the very air had thickened around the unsaid truths, around the tension that no one dared acknowledge, yet which saturated every corner, every shadow. And in that charged silence, I began to understand something fundamental, not about her, not about me, but about the power dynamics that lay hidden beneath the ordinary patterns of marriage, beneath the cozy routines and shared mornings that lulled so many couples into the illusion of safety. I understood that words could be weapons, and that loyalty, while sacred and steadfast, could also be rendered invisible by a single act of betrayal, a single confession wrapped in teasing tones, a single night spent lying, smiling, and deceiving. The following week, I began to notice the first fissures in the illusion I had clung to so dearly. The phone left on the kitchen counter, screen aglow with messages that were meant to be secret but could not hide from my careful gaze, became the first real evidence of the betrayal that had been whispered into existence by her earlier words. Every ping, every neon notification, every laugh typed into a text that was never meant for my eyes became ammunition in the slow, meticulous construction of a countermeasure. I didn't rush. I didn't react with loud, visible fury. Instead, I let it all gather, accumulating like sediment in a riverbed, patient and inevitable, until the weight of it pressed against the dam I had built inside myself. I cataloged everything: messages, dates, times, patterns, hints that together formed a map of her excursions into deception. Her girls' nights, once a trusted ritual, became a litany of hotels, strange hands, and secret faces that I collected with the precision of a historian chronicling a hidden war. The betrayal was not sudden. It had been simmering, and I now understood that it had been deliberate. She wanted to test me, to provoke, to see if I could be shaken, to measure my endurance against the thrill of her games, the allure of her own rebellion. And I, who had once believed that love could be proof against such manipulation, realized that love alone was not enough. Strength, patience, observation, and meticulous planning would be my allies in the conflict she had ignited with a casual, taunting question. I moved quietly, deliberately. First, the practicalities: finances, security, control of our shared resources. My paycheck, once part of a joint account that she controlled with effortless precision, was rerouted to a separate account she had never touched. Passwords were changed silently, systems updated without announcement or confrontation. Everything she assumed she had access to, everything she believed was hers to command, slowly slipped beyond her reach, but in a way that would only reveal itself when the time was right. I was building not just a defense, but a position of strength so complete that when the revelation came, it would be absolute, undeniable, and irreversible. Every morning I watched her leave, perfectly unaware, dressed in her armor of confidence and charm, heels clicking across the pavement like a countdown to the inevitable. And every night I returned to my vigil, collecting, cataloging, preparing, letting the weight of the plan press itself into my bones until patience became instinct, silence became armor, and observation became second nature. The betrayal, which had been meant to empower her, had instead forged something deeper within me, a resolve as cold as it was unyielding, a quiet power that did not need to shout or rage to exist, but simply had to endure, bide its time, and strike with precision when the moment was perfect. Her words, the catalyst of this entire transformation, echoed in my mind constantly. I need to find out if big size really matters. You'll never know. Don't worry. At first, they had burned, white hot like acid against skin, a brand marking the limits of my tolerance. But over time, that pain cooled into a sharp clarity, an understanding that the issue was never size in any physical sense she implied. The issue was control, dominance, assertion. She had wanted to see if she could make me feel powerless, if she could reduce me to doubt and insecurity, if she could bend the structure of my world just by whispering a suggestion, a taunt into the air. And I had not broken. I had not bent. I had simply begun the quiet, deliberate work of establishing the true measure of strength. Not in the body, not in the passion of a moment, but in the unflinching patience of a man who understands that revenge, true revenge, is not about the immediate explosion of anger or tears, but the long, measured collapse of an empire built on lies and confidence. Each piece of evidence I collected, each calculated step in securing my position, became a testament not just to her betrayal, but to the resilience I had cultivated over years of trust and commitment. A demonstration that while illusions can be shattered in an instant, foundations built on patience, strategy, and unwavering purpose cannot be so easily destroyed. I watched the world she believed she controlled unravel in miniature before it even began. Each text message, each fleeting image of clandestine encounters, each moment she thought was invisible, I filed away like precise instruments in a surgeon's kit, ready for the moment they would be used. And all the while, I maintained a calm, unbroken exterior, walking through the same rooms we had shared for years, moving past the photographs of laughter and vacations, past the echoes of promises once made, past the illusions of trust she had counted on, all the while feeling the pulse of inevitable reckoning growing stronger with each passing day. There was no rush. Explosions burn quickly and leave nothing but ashes, but I did not seek destruction. I sought something more elegant, more devastating in its totality, a collapse that would leave her stunned, humiliated, exposed not only to the truth of her own actions, but to the perception of everyone she had allowed to believe in her perfection. I understood at that moment that the true measure of power lies not in fury, not in spectacle, but in the patient orchestration of events so precise and inevitable that the world itself seems to conspire in revealing the truth. I did not merely plan for confrontation. I planned for transformation, for the shattering of her carefully constructed reality, so that nothing she held sacred would survive intact. And in those long, quiet nights, as I sat alone with the glow of the screens, the weight of the evidence, the mapping of her betrayal, I realized something profound. Size matters. But it was not the size she had intended to test. It was the size of patience, the size of silence, the size of the unwavering resolve of a man who had been pushed to the brink, tested, and found not wanting. I was not the small one. I was not weak. I was more than she could imagine, more than she could handle, and every moment she spent in arrogance, in the thrill of her imagined empowerment, only added depth to the inevitable reckoning I was preparing. I let her believe she was in control. I let her think her games were hidden, her secrets untraceable, her nights unsanctioned. And in that quiet confidence, I found power. And in that power, I began to sketch the masterpiece that would not only end her illusion, but redefine the rules of consequence entirely.